The first time I watched my neighbor Klaus fill up his old diesel wagon, I laughed at him. He drove the same roads I did, same distance, same traffic, but his tank lasted nearly half again as long as mine. I thought he was lying. I thought maybe his gauge was broken. It wasn't. Here is the truth I finally understood, standing in that gas station outside Stuttgart, watching the numbers on his pump crawl while mine had raced. The way most of us drive burns fuel we never needed to burn, and a quiet German method taught in driving schools over there for decades can cut a real chunk off what you spend at the pump without buying a single new part. This isn't a gadget. It isn't a fuel additive in a bottle. It's a way of handling the car you already own, worked out by German engineers and drilled into ordinary drivers that Americans were simply never taught. I'm going to walk you through all of it. And near the end, I'll show you the strangest piece of the whole thing, tied to a Bosch invention from 1967, a trick that lets your engine burn absolutely zero fuel in a moment when you'd swear it must be burning some. It works on almost any modern car sitting in your driveway right now. But let me start where I started. Confused, skeptical, and a little annoyed. Klaus was a retired machinist, careful man, and the first thing he showed me had nothing to do with the engine and everything to do with his right hand and his ears. In Germany, when you learn to drive, you don't just learn to steer and park. You learn something they call the shift point, the moment you move up to a higher gear. And here is what shocked me. German instructors teach new drivers to shift up early, very early, long before the engine sounds like it's working hard. Most of us here were taught the opposite, or taught nothing at all. We wind the engine up, listen to it climb, and shift when it feels powerful. That feeling of power is the sound of fuel being poured into the cylinders and burned off as noise and heat. Klaus shifted into a higher gear at around 2,000 turns of the engine, sometimes lower. The car felt lazy to me, almost sleepy. But that lazy feeling was the sound of money staying in his pocket. The German Automobile Club, the one they call the ADAC, founded all the way back in 1903, has run fuel tests on this for years. Their own driving trainers say shifting up early and keeping the engine turning slowly can cut fuel use meaningfully on the exact same trip. Not by changing where you go, only by changing how you handle the pedals and the gear stick. Think about that. Same route, same car, same you, less fuel. I tried it the very next week on my own car. It felt wrong at first. My whole life I'd been told a slow-turning engine was lugging, straining, hurting itself, but a modern engine pulling gently in a high gear at low speed is doing exactly what its makers designed it to do. It sips. It doesn't gulp. And that was the first crack in everything I thought I knew. Because if something this simple was true, and this cheap and this effective, I had one obvious question. Why had nobody ever told me? That question is where this stops being a nice driving tip and starts being something that made me angry. Think about who profits when you burn more fuel than you need. Every extra gallon you buy is money that leaves your hand and lands in someone else's. The station on the corner, the company behind it. The whole enormous machine built on the assumption that you'll pull in and fill up more often than you truly have to. Nobody in that chain has any reason to teach you to drive in a way that empties your tank slower. Their entire business runs on the opposite. And so a body of practical knowledge that Germans treat as basic, as ordinary as buckling your seatbelt, quietly never crossed the ocean. I don't think it was one dramatic conspiracy in a smoke-filled room. It was quieter than that, and worse. It was simply nobody's job to tell you. The people who knew had no reason to speak, and the people who needed to hear it didn't know there was anything to ask. But the Germans built the knowledge right into the law of the road. Their driving curriculum treats fuel saving as a core skill you must demonstrate. They have a name for the whole approach. Vorausschauendes Fahren. It translates roughly to driving that looks ahead. Anticipatory driving. And this is the second piece, and it's bigger than the first. Klaus almost never used his brakes hard. I noticed it riding with him. When he saw a red light 300 yards ahead, He didn't keep his foot on the gas and then stab the brake at the last second like I did. He lifted off early. He let the car roll. He read the road far in front of him, the way a chess player reads 3 moves ahead. Here's why that matters, and it's pure physics. Every time you press the brake, you are throwing away energy. You paid for that energy with fuel. You spent money to get the car moving, and then you turn that motion into heat in your brake pads and simply waste it. Then you press the gas again to rebuild the speed you just destroyed. Braking hard and accelerating hard over and over is like earning a paycheck and burning half of it in the driveway. German driving culture treats that stop-and-go stabbing as a beginner's mistake, something you're expected to grow out of. The ADAC and German technical inspectors have hammered this point for years. Smooth, anticipatory driving, keeping a steady flow, looking far ahead, can save a real double-digit percentage of fuel in town driving compared to the aggressive stop-and-go most of us fall into without thinking. Double digits on city driving for free. I want you to sit with how much that adds up to over years. If you drive an average amount and you're wasting even 15% of your fuel to hard braking and hard acceleration, that's not pocket change. Over a decade, that's thousands of dollars turned into brake dust and noise. Money you worked for, gone into heat you never even felt. And it gets sharper, because those same hard braking habits chew through your brake pads and rotors far faster too, so you pay twice. Once at the pump, and again at the repair shop. Klaus told me he'd gone years longer between brake jobs than anyone he knew back in the States. Of course he had. He barely used them. So now I had 2 pieces. Shift early, keep the engine turning slow, and look far ahead, glide instead of stab. But I still had a nagging doubt, the same doubt you might have right now. Maybe this only works for a careful old German machinist in a special German car on smooth German roads. That doubt is exactly what I want to talk about next, because I had it too, and it was completely wrong. If you're sitting there thinking this is all fine for somebody with a fancy new vehicle full of computers and eco settings, I want to speak straight to you for a minute, because this next part is built for your car specifically. The one in your driveway, the older one. The one with some miles on it and nothing special under the hood. Everything I'm telling you works better the more ordinary your car is, because these are not features you switch on. They are things you do. Your right foot doesn't need software. Your habits don't need a subscription. Start with the simplest thing of all, one that costs you nothing and that most people get wrong for their entire lives. Your tires. Underinflated tires are one of the biggest silent fuel thieves there is. When a tire is soft, it flattens out where it meets the road, and the car has to fight that squishy drag with every single turn of the wheel. It's like trying to ride a bicycle with half-flat tires. You feel like you're pedaling through sand. Germans are almost fussy about tire pressure. The ADAC has published for years that a large share of cars on the road are rolling around underinflated, and that even a small drop below the correct pressure measurably raises fuel use. Many careful German drivers deliberately set their tires a touch firmer, often around 0.2 of a bar above the basic recommendation, for exactly this reason, using the higher figure the carmaker lists for a full load. You don't need to buy anything. The correct numbers for your car are printed right there on a sticker inside the driver's door frame or on the inside of the fuel filler flap. Go look tonight. Most gas stations have an air pump. Set your tires properly, and you have just clawed back fuel for free this week with the car you already own. Now, that door sticker gives you the basic number, but there is a whole engineering layer underneath it. How load, temperature, and rolling resistance change what the right pressure actually is on your car, on your roads, in your winter. That is more than I can fit into one video. So I put the full system into writing. The 8 German driver protocols, step by step, with the cold start rules, the oil and fluid strategy, the coasting and momentum work, and the failure mode intelligence that tells you what is about to break on a high-mileage car before it leaves you standing in a parking lot. Nearly 400 pages of it, no gadgets, no imported parts, no special tools, just the habits that add 100,000 miles and more to a car you already have sitting in the driveway. If you want the whole thing in your hands, scan the QR code right there on your screen, link in the description, pinned comment. The books are all there waiting for you. Now, tires are only the beginning of what you are hauling around. Next, take a walk around what you're carrying. Weight is fuel. Every extra pound the engine has to haul costs you. Germans are practical about this to the point of stubbornness. That box of junk in your trunk you've been meaning to take inside for 2 months? It's riding along on every trip, quietly drinking your gas, clear it out, and the roof. If you've got a roof rack or a carrier up top that you only use twice a year, it's up there the other 360 days creating drag, fighting the wind, forcing your engine to work harder at every speed. Take it off when you're not using it. That alone changes your fuel numbers more than people believe, because wind resistance climbs steeply the faster you go. Then there's the one nobody wants to hear, speed itself. The faster you drive, the harder the air pushes back, and that push grows far quicker than the speed does. Germans, of all people, understand this, even on those famous open stretches of road. The difference in fuel between cruising at a calm, steady pace and hammering along at the very top end is enormous. Backing off even a little on the highway, holding a smooth, steady speed instead of surging, saves a striking amount over a long trip. None of this needs a new car. None of it needs a mechanic. None of it needs a thing you don't already have. It needs you to know what the Germans have known for 2 generations, and to change a few small habits starting with your very next drive. But I promised you something stranger, something that sounds impossible the first time you hear it. And to understand it, I have to take you back to a workshop in Germany and a piece of engineering most drivers have never heard of, even though it's sitting inside their own engine right now. Here's the setup. Almost everyone I know, when they want to coast, when they come to a long downhill or they're rolling up to a stop, they slip the car into neutral. They think they're being clever. They think a disconnected engine just idling must be saving fuel while the car rolls free. I thought so too. My father taught me that. His father probably taught him. Coast in neutral, save gas. It sounds like common sense. It is dead wrong. And the reason why is one of the most beautiful little secrets in the whole automobile. Back in 1967, the German company Bosch introduced the first electronic fuel injection system for cars, a system they called Jetronic. Instead of a mechanical carburetor sloshing fuel into the engine by rough guesswork, a set of electronics now decided precisely how much fuel to deliver and exactly when. This was a German revolution in how engines are fed, and over the following years it changed every car on Earth. And that precise electronic control made something remarkable possible. The engineers realized that when you're rolling along in gear with your foot completely off the gas, going downhill or slowing down, the engine doesn't need any fuel at all. The wheels are turning the engine through the transmission. The car's own motion is keeping everything spinning. So why feed it fuel to do a job the road is already doing for free? So they built in a feature. In German it's called Schubabschaltung, the overrun fuel cutoff. When you are in gear, moving, with your foot off the accelerator, and the engine is spinning above idle, the injectors shut off completely. Not a little, completely. Your engine, in that moment, burns absolutely nothing. Zero fuel. The car is being carried by its own momentum, and the fuel line is simply closed. Now here is where it turns your whole life upside down. The moment you shift into neutral to coast, you cancel that. In neutral, the engine is disconnected from the wheels, so it has to keep itself alive. It has to sip a small trickle of fuel just to keep idling and not stall. So the old trick everyone taught us, coasting in neutral, actually burns more fuel than simply leaving the car in gear and lifting your foot. Read that again, because it's the exact opposite of what most people do their whole lives. Rolling downhill in gear with your foot off the pedal can cost you nothing. Rolling downhill in neutral costs you idle fuel the entire way down. I didn't believe it, so I checked it against the instant fuel readout, and I watched with my own eyes as the consumption dropped to zero the instant I let off the gas while staying in gear, and then jumped back up to a small idle figure the moment I slipped it into neutral. There it was. Everything my family taught me, backwards. This is the German method in its purest form. Anticipate the stop far ahead. See the red light, the slowing traffic, the bottom of the hill coming. Take your foot off the gas early and let the car glide toward it in gear, burning nothing, using the machine exactly the way Bosch engineers designed it to be used back in the late 1960s. You only need to slip into neutral or touch the brake right at the very end when the car is slowed enough that it would otherwise stall or stop short. Do you see how all the pieces lock together now? Looking far ahead isn't just gentler, it's what lets you coast in gear for long stretches with the fuel completely shut off. Every second you spend rolling in gear toward a stop you saw coming is a second your engine drinks nothing at all. The person who stares at the bumper in front of them, gas on, brake off, never gets a single second of that free travel. This is why Klaus's tank lasted so long. It was never one trick. It was the whole way of thinking. Shift early so the engine turns slow and calm. Read the road far ahead so you rarely brake hard. And when you do slow down, glide in gear with the fuel cut clean off, letting the road itself carry you. And the finest part, the part that still makes me shake my head, is that you already own this. Every modern fuel-injected car built in the last few decades has this cutoff feature inside it right now, quietly waiting, because it descends directly from that Bosch system of 1967. You don't install it, you don't pay for it, you just have to know it's there and drive in a way that lets it do its job. Nobody at the pump is going to tell you your engine can run on nothing. Why would they? The whole beautiful trick was built into your car and then left unspoken, so that the vast majority of drivers spend their entire lives slipping into neutral, burning idle fuel, and feeling clever about it. Not you. Not anymore. So let me put the whole thing back together for you, simple and clear, the way Klaus finally put it together for me on that long drive when I stopped arguing and started listening. Shift up early and keep your engine turning slow and quiet, the way German driving schools have taught for generations. Let a gentle, lazy-feeling engine save you money instead of a loud, straining one costing you money. Look far down the road, further than feels natural, and stop stabbing the brake. Every hard brake is fuel you already paid for, thrown away as heat. Glide, don't lurch. Check your tire pressure tonight using the numbers on your own door frame. Clear the dead weight out of your trunk. Pull that unused rack off your roof and ease off just a little on the highway where the wind fights you hardest. And above all, when you're slowing down, keep it in gear and lift your foot and let that Bosch cutoff feed your engine nothing at all instead of slipping into neutral like the rest of the world and paying to idle your way down every hill. None of it costs $1. All of it starts on your very next drive. And together over a year it adds up to real money, the kind of money that used to leak quietly out of your tank and into somebody else's register while you had no idea it was even happening. That's the thing that got to me most. Once the anger cooled, this was never hidden in a vault. It was hidden in plain sight, built into the machine, taught openly on the other side of one ocean, and simply never carried across to us. The Germans didn't invent secret fuel. They just refused to waste the fuel they had, and they turned that refusal into a habit, a discipline, a plain and ordinary skill that any person can learn. I spent most of my life driving like fuel was free and endless, winding the engine high, braking hard, coasting in neutral, hauling junk around in my trunk, riding on soft tires, and never once questioning any of it. I was the perfect customer. I filled up more often than I ever needed to, and I thought that was just the cost of getting around. It wasn't. It was the cost of not knowing. And knowing is free. If you felt for years that you were being quietly bled dry by bills that never seemed to match what you actually used, If you've suspected that the useful, practical knowledge got buried while the expensive, convenient version got sold to you, then you already understand what this whole thing is really about. You are exactly the kind of person who was never supposed to hear this, and now you have. So I want you to tell me something. When you slip your car into neutral to coast, did you always believe you were saving fuel, the way I did? The way my father swore by it his whole life? Be honest. Drop a comment and tell me, because I promise you are not alone. And I want to see how many of us were taught the exact same backwards trick. Tell me where you're watching from too. And if there's someone in your family who drives the way I used to, send this to them before they fill up again. If you believe, like I've come to believe, that real, useful knowledge has been quietly set aside to protect somebody else's profit, then you belong here with the rest of us who are digging it back up one method at a time. This is a group of people recovering what was buried, not fans of a channel. Subscribe and stand with us. Because next time, I'm going to show you the old German way of keeping a home warm for far less. A heating habit from the coldest winters of the last century that most people today have completely forgotten, and one small change to a single room that quietly cut families' fuel bills before central heating ever took over. You already own everything you'll need for that one too. You just don't know it yet. Drive the way they taught Klaus. Keep more of what's yours, and I'll see you on the next one. Before you go, let me tell you where this goes next. Inside the Old Ways circle, I continue right where we left off, walking you through the full German driving method. You can ask me your own questions, and a real person answers, not a machine. Practical folks like you already belong here. Just point your phone's camera at the code on the screen, and you can cancel any time with one click. Now, saving fuel is only half the story. What if your car could keep running strong for hundreds of thousands of miles? I'll show you the simple German habits that make that happen. It's starting right here.